Hey everybody, I found this video on Instagram and here is where I got it from, this guy here, so you can go to his page if you're interested in more of whatever he has on there. But this is very interesting, so I wanted to kind of dig through and break down this letter because this goes against a lot of the stuff we were taught. This isn't just a simple letter. There's a lot going on in this letter. So this is a letter that was written in response to a former master asking his slave to come back in 1865. So this is what, former slave Jordan Anderson responded with. Reads here, "Sir, I got your letter and was glad to find that you had not forgotten Jordan," this is the name of the man who's writing the letter, "and that you wanted me to come back and live with you again, promising to do better for me than anybody else can. I've often felt uneasy about you. I thought the Yankees would have hung you long before this for harboring rebs they found at your house. I suppose they never heard about your going to Colonel Martin's to kill the Union soldier that was left by his company in their stable." Let's continue. "Although you shot at friendship in the future," I don't know if this is the exact, next page, but it continues here. "I served you faithfully for 32 years and Mandy 20 years. At $25 a month for me and $2 a week for Mandy," Mandy's Jordan's wife, "our earnings would amount to $11,680. Add to this the interest for the time our wages have been kept back, and deduct what you paid for our clothing and 3 doctor's visits to me and pulling a tooth for Mandy, and the balance will show what we are in justice entitled to. Please send the money by Adams Express in care of V. Winters, Esquire, Dayton, Ohio. If you fail to pay us for faithful labors in the past, we can have little faith in your promises in the future." Okay, first of all, point one. I remember very vividly learning in school that slaves could not read or write. So what is this letter? How could this letter exist? And for anybody who asks, well, someone else might have written it for him, you're assuming that. And Dane Cowley made a very good point about the people who write these history books, they don't give you the whole story, so your imagination gets the better of you and you try to use your imagination to justify what you're told, instead of thinking critically and asking, is this even true in the first place? Does this even make sense? We have no evidence that somebody else wrote this for him. This is his letter in response, okay? We don't know if someone wrote this, if he wrote this himself, or if someone else wrote it to him, or read the letters to him. But there's no evidence showing that someone else did this for him. He wrote this. And if he could read, he could write. So this is already causing a crack in the history that they're teaching us in school, in these universities, and in these books. Talking about all these, none of the slaves could read or write, or they had to do it in secret, or they'd be killed, and all these things. Now, I'm not saying that didn't happen, that there were some people who couldn't read or write, sure. But guess what? A lot of people back then couldn't read or write. In the world, in the United States, most Caucasians couldn't read or write. So that's not even something to push like, oh man, it's so sad they couldn't read or write. Okay, your ancestors couldn't read or write either. Being literate just became common very recently, in the past century, literally. Not being able to read or write was not uncommon for since forever. But this person was an exception. And obviously, if he knew how to do this, his master didn't punish him. Look, he learned how to read and write somewhere at some point in time. Point two, he was getting paid. What kind of slave get paid? I thought all these people telling us that slaves were working for free, and the most they got was some nasty food from the pigs that the other people didn't want, and a place to sleep at. And you work 13, 12 hours a day every day. And you go to church on Sundays. So where's this $25 a month, $2 a week coming from? Where's this $11,000 plus coming from? And not only that, point three, this man kept track of interest. What kind of slave know about interest? You're supposed to be free labor. And you don't know nothing, you don't know how to read, don't know how to write, you don't know about the outside world. Don't know nothing except what your master tell you. How does this man know about interest? And not only does he know about interest, he kept track of all the times that he was inadequately paid. So this sounds to me like this was just a job with his team. He was getting a steady paycheck. People asking him if he wasn't getting paid enough, why didn't he leave? Let me tell you something. If you had a nice job or a decent job and it's hard out here to get another job like today, but you get a steady paycheck to pay all your bills and to do what you need to do, why would you leave? You're not gonna leave. A lot of people won't even leave their low-paying jobs today because they're afraid they won't get anything. So he stayed for 32 years. He was getting paid consistently, I guess up until Civil War. After that, he left. I guess his manager didn't want to pay him no more, so he said, "Bye. I don't even gotta be here no more." But he was clearly, this man was getting paid. He's getting money on a consistent basis, and he got doctor's visits, paid for multiple doctor visits, and Anderson paid to have clothes bought for Jordan and his wife. So look, they're telling us, you and I vividly remember learning that slaves didn't get paid, free labor. This is not free labor, it's somebody giving you money in exchange for your work. It's called a job, it's called working. And then another person, and then someone may ask, well, he's calling him master and slave and all. Let me tell you something. Back then, when these other foreigners were coming in and invading, and they were being real violent, and they were so violent and petty, if you said certain things they didn't like, they'd kill you. If you didn't address them a certain way, they would literally kill you. If somebody come and want me to call them John John, or else they'll kill me, I'm gonna call them John John. That was what's happening back then. You want me to call you, I'm master, you address me as master, whatever you say, in order to get you out my face so I can go do the work and live my life. This was not such a strict, like, in the minds of, a lot of people in the minds of the slaves, like, oh man, I'm dependent on my master. No, he didn't go back. This guy obviously wasn't no coon. He's like, I'm not coming back for you. You ain't even giving me my money that you owe. And you asking me to come back? It says here, basically it says, if you don't pay us for what you owe us in the past, we're not gonna come back to you to work for you in the future. Because you haven't even paid me the money that you owe. So he had sense back then not to go. So it wasn't no coonish thing while they were dressing him as masters, because these Caucasians were so petty and had such low self-esteem. They wanted to be dressed so highly, or they would have a damn fit. Because if this man had a real slave mentality, he would have went back. But he didn't, because he knows this guy Anderson is lying. He's not going to give him this stuff. He just wants somebody to come back and do the work for him, because maybe he was $25 a month, $2 a week was a pretty low wage. So I can get away with this. I ain't got to, other people may come and want me to pay them more money. I'm going to see if I can get these people back. It's like, no, you need to pay what you owe. So I want to end this by saying, when you do research, anybody, when you look in these history books, when you see old photographs or pictures and depictions, when you read letters, diaries, books, just know that there were millions of people all over this land doing all kinds of stuff. There's all kinds of things going on. Do not let this system paint a picture of everything was one way, one dimensional, and it couldn't have been any other way, or everything, or there were some exceptions, but 99% of the time it was like this. No, because you'll see a few things, you'll maybe see 10, 20, 30 stories talking about, yeah, we's enslaved and master and this and that, but you're not seeing all the other hundreds of thousands of stories that may have been undocumented where people were not living like that. And even when we talk about, the slave breeding farms and stuff like that, okay, yes, did that happen? Yeah. Was that a vast majority of people came from? No. That's impossible. Just by the numbers, that's impossible. This is, okay, how can I say this? There's always multiple things going on in the world. So if someone comes and tells you this is how it was and this is the only thing that happened, this is the only way it could have happened, there's only one way, That makes no sense at all because there's too many people in the world for somebody to control. I don't care if you're Illuminati or what, whoever you are not going to be able to control the movement and action of every single person anywhere on this planet. And especially back then, where they didn't even have the technology we had today, what about all these revolts? What about all these people that were just walking free doing what they wanted to do? What about there were all these towns of bronze people, there was no Caucasians, they were never enslaved? What about all these people that never even worked for Caucasians and their descendants are still alive today? How come they don't want to talk about them? They only want to show you slave movies, 12 Years a Slave, Roots, all that stuff, The Help. What about all these people that have had their own businesses, who would just travel wherever they needed to go to earn some money? What about all these bronze people who actually owned and leased land out to other people, who have farms? They didn't work for nobody. How come they don't show you all those? Because if we had hundreds of millions of acres of land, then that means there was a decent amount of bronze people, American indigenous people, who owned that land and was working on it. So there's no way all of us could have been slaves. That doesn't make any sense. We can't be a slave and own land at the same time. So when you read these letters, diaries, books, or whatever, always read critically. Don't just read to read. You need to learn and figure out the backstory of what's going on here. Like this letter, it's not just a simple letter. The fact of the matter is it's going against so many things we've been taught.